Colonial French is a variety of Louisiana French. It is associated with the Cajun French dialect and Louisiana Creole French, a related Creole language, formerly spoken widely in what is now the U.S. state of Louisiana. It has since merged into Cajun French. Colonial French is conventionally described as the form of French spoken in Lower French Louisiana prior to the late arrival of Acadians after the great upheaval of the mid-18th century, which resulted in the birth of the Cajun dialect. The prestige dialect still used by Creoles and Cajuns is often identified as deriving from Colonial French, but some linguists differentiate between the two, referring to the latter as Plantation Society French, historically spoken by Louisiana Creole population in Lower French Louisiana. Colonial French is generally considered to have been adopted by whites, blacks and Cajuns. It is known among the educated that it has been relabeled Cajun French among Cajuns and Codofil. Most linguists consider it to have largely been relabeled Cajun French by Cajuns and whites, which is distinguishable from Louisiana Creole French. Following the great upheaval in the mid-18th century, when many Acadians relocated to French Louisiana, Colonial French was beginning to be assimilated by the Acadians or Cajuns. Some scholars suggested that it survived as the prestige dialect spoken by Creoles, both white and of color, into the 21st century. There are populations of Creoles and Cajuns among other ethnic groups in the parishes of St. Martin, Avayelles, Iberia, Pointe Coupée, Street, Charles Street, Landry, St. Mary, St. Tammany, Plaquemines, and other parishes south of Orleans that still speak this prestige dialect. However, linguists have pointed out this prestige dialect is distinct from the pre-upheaval Colonial French, and is largely derived from the Standard French of the mid-19th century, Spanish, African languages, and Native Americans languages. As such, in 1998 linguist Michael Picone of the University of Alabama introduced the term Plantation Society French for the prestige dialect. There is a history of diglossia between Plantation Society French and Louisiana Creole French. Plantation Society French, at any rate, is quite close to the Standard French of the time of its origin, with some possible differences in pronunciation and vocabulary use. Unremarkably, it is still spoken by the Louisiana Indians, such as the Humas, Avayelles, Choctaw and other tribal remnants, all present in pre-Acadian Louisiana and still present in contemporary Louisiana. History. The French settled in Louisiana, establishing the Creole culture and language there. French immigration was at its peak during the 17th and 18th centuries, and then small waves in the 19th century until the start of the American Civil War, bringing large numbers of Francophones speaking something more similar to today's Metropolitan French into Louisiana. Over time, through contact between groups, such as the white Creoles, Creoles Takula, native tribes, Africans, the Spanish etc., there was a high rate of intermarriage. The dialects would mix to produce the French we today call Louisiana French. Over time, Louisiana French became the firmly established language of many South Louisiana parishes, mainly the Creole parishes. Louisiana French, although originally spoken by the French and Amqtis Creoles of southern Louisiana, is also spoken by Acadian Creoles, Cajuns, but also by other ethnic groups that lived in the Creole settlement of Lower Louisiana. Creoles, Amerindian ethnic groups such as the Houma, Chit Natchitoches, Point Ochen, Bayugula, Tunica Biloxi, Artacopa, Opalusa, Ocalusa, and Avoyelles, already spoke this variety of French prior to the late arrival of the Acadian people in Louisiana, as noted by Captain Jean-Bernard Bossu, who traveled with and witnessed Bienville himself speaking this common language in his work Travels through that part of American formerly called Louisiana 1768, pp. 254 to 255. This unusual blend of colonial French was also noticed by Pierre-Clement de Lausat during a lunch visit with the Creole French Cantarell family. Upon arrival of the Houma Indian relatives, these French Creoles began conversing in French and Choctaw, according to the surprised governor. Additional witness to this remarkable Louisiana French comes from J. F. H. Claiborne, in his Mississippi, the Province, the Territory and the State, with biographical notices of eminent citizens. Volume 1, publication date 1880, a cousin of Louisiana's first American governor, who also noted the unusual patois of provincial French and Choctaw spoken by Coeur de Bois. Louis Leffler. Creole as a noun is different from Creole as an adjective. Despite the Creole myth of both Charles Galliard of New Orleans and that of later Creoles de Couleur, and some contemporary associations of Creole as a racial qualifier, the term is not polysemous, historically speaking, as shown in the works of German scholar Georg Friedrich's Amerikanisches Waterbuchen in Louisiana's courthouse records and documents of the French and Spanish colonial periods. The term was consistently used generically to represent native or locally born, in contrast to foreign-born, regardless of whether a person was born of African or native ancestry or white origins. He or she was Creole in colonial Louisiana. Creole as an adjective simply meant native. Through the interactions between such groups of French, African, and Native American, Spanish, German, and Italians, Louisiana French became a lingua franca used among all, now known as Louisiana French, because as they were all speakers of this creolized French, they referred to the language Creole French, as did the uneducated African slaves and poor Creoles, even as the descendants of the Acadians in Louisiana refer to this same Creole French as Cajun French. In today's society, Creoles are able to glean this lingua franca in the Dictionary of Louisiana French as spoken in Cajun, Creole and Amp Indian communities, edited by Albert Waldman and other authorities on the pre-Acadian language, as well as in the Dictionary of Louisiana Creole, although it is heavily phoneticized in the International Phonetic Script, which tends to give the misleading impression that Louisiana Creole is an entirely unrelated language. Louisiana French is not only spoken by the French Creoles but also by Métis Creoles such as the Chitimacha, Houma, Biloxi, Tunica, Choctaw, and also by whites, Cajuns, French, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian, Syrian, Lebanese, Irish and others. Individuals and groups of individuals, through innovation, adaptation and contact, continually enrich the French language spoken in Louisiana, seasoning it with linguistic features sometimes only found in Louisiana parishes where Louisiana French is spoken. Primarily it is spoken in Pointe-Coupée, Lafayette, and Natchitoches, but is also spoken in Acadia, Ascension, Allen, Assumption, Avoyelles, Calcasieu, Cameron, Evangeline, Iberia, Jefferson, Jefferson Davis, Lafourche, St. Charles, St. James, St. Landry, St. Martin, St. Mary, Terrebonne, Vermilion. Borrowed words. Louisiana's colonial French Choctaw patois, a Creole French Indian patois, remains the language known as Louisiana French, complete with its unusual Mobilian Choctaw jargon. Due to the consistent relations between the Native American tribes and the indigenous Louisiana Creole people, the lingua franca became what many today call Colonial French Choctaw Patois or Colonial French Con. It is regarded as a marriage of the Colonial French of the French maritime world and the unique Lower Louisiana Mobilian Choctaw jargon. Louisiana French Choctaw Patois, native speakers being primarily Louisiana's Afro-French and Métis Creoles, has a host of words of Native American origin. Words of Native American origin in contrast to the Acadians, the Louisiana French, Canadian and European soldiers of Bienville's Alabama would intermarry largely among the Choctaw Amerindian families, and among other Amerindian families friendly to the French in both Lower and Upper Louisiana then, including what are now the American states of Louisiana, Mississippi, parts of Texas, Alabama, Illinois, Missouri, Michigan and the Great Lakes regions where French Canadian and the Métis descendants continue to live and speak the dialects of French. Subdialects. Louisiana's Colonial French Choctaw Patois often varies by community and ethnic group. Prairie French. Prairie French is spoken among Creole, Cajun, and white residents in southwest Louisiana. Bayou French. Bayou French is primarily spoken among white French Creoles, other white people, and American Indians in southeast Louisiana. It has many old lost Acadian phrases and sayings that sound crude to most other Louisiana French speakers. Natchitoches French. Although known as Natchitoches French, this variety is spoken not only by those Métis Creoles of Natchitoches Parish. This dialect has a heavy Choctaw influence when compared to other dialects. One aspect of note is the use of hilito, a Choctaw word for hello, when greeting one's elders. The numbers of this dialect have dwindled greatly. Not many native speakers of this dialect survive. Point Coupé Parish French. Many speakers of this dialect bilingual in both Louisiana Creole and Louisiana French Choctaw Patois. Hence, there is a heavy presence of code switching and lexical borrowing among Louisiana Creole, Louisiana French Choctaw Patois, and English code switching and lexicon borrowing. Code switching occurs frequently in southwestern Louisiana, especially in Point Coupé French. In southwestern Louisiana, it is common to hear individuals use Colonial French Choctaw Patois and Louisiana Creole French. This is typical for many language contact situations. Code switching was once viewed as a sign of poor language skills, but it is now understood to be an indication of proficiency in the two languages which a speaker employs. Fluent French speakers frequently alternate from French to American English or Creole, while less proficient speakers usually will not. Examples of code switching in Louisiana French spoken by a 64-year-old woman in Pierre Part. 1. Il y avait une fois il drivait, il travaillait 8 jours on et 6 jours off. Et il drivait 2 16, 6 jours off. California il prendrait 24 jours straight through. Et là il restait 4 jours ici et il retournait. La seconde fois c'est benus well, il dit, moi, si tu viens pas, il dit, je vais pas. California fait que le gai acute, boy, ça pas ouvrir. The vas pas. One time he was driving, he was working 8 days on and 6 days off. And he was driving, 6 days off. It would take him 24 hours straight through. And he would stay here 4 days and then go back. So when the second time came, well, he said, if you don't come, he said, I'm not going. So I went. Boy, his poor mother. Don't go, she said. Don't go. 2. Le samedi après-midi on a la oui, ringer le coup de la volaille. Et le dimanche, well, dimanche California c'est notre meilleure journée qu'on avait plus de bon manger. Ma mère faisait de la volaille et on avait de la poutine aux croquettes. Saturday afternoon we would go wring the chicken's neck, and on Sunday, well, Sunday, that was our best day for eating well. My mother would freeze some chicken and we would have some poutine aux croquettes. Notable speakers: Sybil Keane, John Lafleur II, Christophe Landry, Rosie Ledet, Bouzou Chavis, Clifton Chenier, John Delafosse, C. J. Chenier, Ambrose Sam, Barry Jean Ancelet, Calvin Borel, Michael Doucet, Canray Fontenot, Richard Guidry, Stephen Ortego, Zachary Richard, Mabel's Onia Savoie,